Hello, everyone. Never quite see that when it first comes on. I'm always waiting for it to say you're live, and I'm not sure what it takes to get there. So, anyway, here we are. It's Diana Rankin on our Friday afternoon together. And this week we have a question, of course, close to my heart. As all of you know, my Daisy dog has not been doing so great, but I want to report today she's rebounding, and she did actually yesterday as well. The last few days she's been rebounding, and I want to say it's great. I love it. She's even doing a little running and jumping around. For a border collie to not be able to do that is pretty tough. But yesterday she still needed a little help getting up. Today she's got up on her own, and she did a little bit of that yesterday, but today she's gotten up. She has 3 different beds in her area that we cordoned off by putting carpet down in that area. The rest of our floors are hardwood, and she has sleeps on one bed and then gets up and sleeps on the other and then goes to the 3rd bed. And so she's doing okay. So thank you for all your prayers and your healing energy, for sending her all of that, because believe me, without that, I don't think she'd be here with us today. And that is our question of this week. Thank you for one of our viewers, for sending it in. It's a tough one. How does one make a decision on helping a loved pet get along to the Rainbow Bridge while respecting that pet? Excuse me. So that's the question that we've asked Phillip. And Phillip actually has a very comforting answer. We will also get our message for the week. And before I forget, this is the 16th week of 2021. It is April the 18th to the 24th. So those of you who are unfamiliar with this book, this is a book of oracles. It's the Master's Book of Answers by Phillip, and each page just has a different wisdom on it. And so we will get the message for this week shortly here. But welcome, everyone. So good to see you this week. And if you have questions, and do keep them as a, excuse me, having trouble with my voice today, aren't I? But if you have a question, keep it of a general nature. If you care to have a private reading, my information's below. Just give me a call and we'll get you set up. But let's get into the answer to this question. We understand, or to the question is, how does one make a decision on helping a loved pet get along to the Rainbow Bridge while respecting that pet? And here's what Phillip has to say. We understand, dear one, that at this time, and this is a personal message for me, but I'll share it. We understand, dear one, that at this time, this is a difficult question for you. This is why it was asked. We thank the one who did so, as do I. Phillip goes on to say, let us remind you that the emotions around are felt by humans and the pets alike. This is not to say they have the same concept of death, for indeed they do not. So the emotions around death are felt by both pet and human. We do want to emphasize that as humans and their pets have become closer, the culture between the two has evolved. This evolution has created a bond between an animal and the human companion. Death creates a breaking of the physical bond only. The spirit bond, expressed via the heart chakra, is not broken. There is a mourning of the breaking of the physical bond, which is difficult for humans to experience. And I think those of us who have lost a beloved pet know that that spirit bond is never broken. It's always there. Phillip goes on to say, but we do grieve the loss of the human physical bond between us. This grieving is, in part, what may interfere with the human making the decision to aid the pet's passage. This, however, is not true in all cases, yet it must be considered, so the human must ask if any reluctance is their inability to accept their grief. And I think that can be a part for some people, that I'm afraid I'm going to grieve, so I don't want to let the pet go yet. And if that's true, we need to look at that, look at ourselves, and stop and say, what's really best for the pet? Phillip goes on to say, now let us specifically address the question as to how to make the decision with respect for the pet. 2 words in the question answer the question. Those words are love and respect. It is in loving the pet that you wish to eliminate the pet's suffering. If the pet is in pain and that pain cannot be eliminated or healed, then it is love for the pet that brings forth the question of euthanasia. The harder question for the human is respecting the pet and making the decision based on what the pet wants. The pets do not look on death as do humans. However, as we stated earlier, evolution has brought human emotions into the psyche of many animals. This means that some animals have taken on the human emotions around death, which also brings on the questions around death. These questions may include, will you miss me? Will you remember me? Will you find me if I come back in a new body? Will I be alone? Will I have companions to play with? Will I still hurt? Those are some of the questions that Phillip tells us the pets may have, since the evolution of pets taking on human emotions. Phillip goes on to say, these are only a few questions that we give as examples. We tell you this because the human must ask their pet what questions they have and then listen to hear the answers they are to give to their pet. Of course, there are those who communicate with animals, but the responsibility is not to be given to them. They may help and guide the human to find the pet's questions and responses. The animal communicator may even say the pet is or is not asking for help to cross over, but the pet parent must accept the responsibility of making the decision. This decision comes after the pet parent and the pet have communicated with one another. After this communication, where the pet's questions are heard and answered, is the human parent able to make any decisions. Hours, days, weeks, even months may go by before the pet tells the human, I'm ready. This is a knowing between the human and the pet. The pet looks at the human and the parent knows, just knows it's time. Before this knowing, the human spends wasted emotional energy wondering what to do. This is the time not to angst, but to spend precious time together. For most humans, this is a difficult process. We ask you to stop questioning yourselves. Instead, we ask you to trust yourself and trust your bond with your pet, that trust your bond with your pet, that you will know what to do and when to do what is to be done. The acting in this way of trust, you respect yourself, your pet, and the bond between you. This is love. So what Phillip is telling us is ask those questions of your pet. Certainly work with animal communicators if that helps you, but you're the one ultimately responsible. Hello, Judith. Thank you. I accept those blessings. And so good to see you here. With Daisy, one of the things that Daisy and I talk all the time, and I did ask her if she's ready to transition. And she said no. And I said, okay, then we'll do everything we can to help you stay here as comfortably as possible. And it was real clear to me it wasn't time, but there's still that watching and wondering. And I told her that she had a choice. If she wasn't ready to cross over, then she had to heal. And so she had her choice. get better, or let's cross over. Not that I wanted her to cross over, but to see her not being able to get up on her own and having trouble walking on her own, that was very difficult. And it felt that it wasn't helping her. And believe me, it was certainly hard on me, especially when she would cry in the middle of the night. Hello, Mike. Yes, that was your question, and you're most welcome. So I think those of us, what Phillip is saying is ask the questions. And one of the questions, excuse me, that I did not have the answer to, that this came from a friend who's an animal communicator. She came back and she said, Daisy's not ready to go. And I thought Daisy would have said, she's not ready to leave you, me. That's not what Daisy was saying. Daisy was saying, life is too good. I'm not willing to give it up yet. And she was concerned about, would I find my mom again if I came back in a baby body? Excuse me. So ask your pet those questions. Trust the answers. Work with animal communicators. But in the end, as the parent, it's our responsibility to make those decisions. And you know, a lot of what Phillip said about pets, I also think that applies to loved ones that we have who may be quite ill and perhaps on life support. We have to ask them what they want and respect that. Not necessarily always what we want. So hopefully, Mike, that was helpful for you. I really appreciate your asking the question. I hope you heard that part up front where Phillip thanked you because he thinks I needed to know this now, and I did. So thank you. Let's get our soul message. And what we do is we just flip through and just open to where our finger stops. There it stops, or in that case, our thumb. I'm hearing right. And so if you heard right, then that means our intuition's in sync. If you heard left, pay attention because that's a message for you. So, and I always read both sides. On the right, it says the universe hands you a gift because you are ready, whether you know it or not. The universe hands you a gift because you are ready, whether you know it or not. And this question was a gift that I wasn't ready to ask. So thank you, Mike, for asking it. On the left side, it says, if yesterday's harvest was limited, perhaps you should plant more abundantly. I'm going to read that one again. If yesterday's harvest was limited, perhaps you should plant more abundantly. And Mike says your timing is our timing. I'm sorry to hear that, Mike. You know, a long time ago, somebody said to me, I said something about our animals just don't live long enough and it's hard. And that person, and I'm sorry, I don't recall who it was so long ago. But the person said back to me, you know, if the reason animals have such short lives and we have such longer lives is because so many animals need to be loved. And so they come and they leave to make room for the next animal that needs to be loved by us. So, Mike, thank you for loving your animals so much. So, if you got left side, your message is, if yesterday's harvest was limited, perhaps you should plant more abundantly. But if you got right side, which is the side I got, so that's our message for this week, the universe hands you a gift because you are ready, whether you know it or not. Making a decision about a pet is never easy. I've had to make those decisions. And then other times my pet said, with Petey, some of you may have seen Petey on earlier videos. She used to sit on the chair behind me, which I don't think you could see this time. And little orange kitty who came running out of the cornfield yelling, I'm hungry. And she was so tiny. She was going to eat roadkill. And we didn't know if she was a boy or girl. Didn't know till it went in for her surgery, and the vet called and said, we thought it was a boy, but it's really a girl. And so we had her for several years. And finally she said, I'm tired, but I don't want to go to the vet. She was very adamant about that. So I decided to just bury her in the garden in the back so she never had to leave this land, because she said, I don't want to leave the land. I don't want to leave the land. We can hear those messages, whatever they are, from our pets. From Daisy saying, not yet, Mom. I'm not ready, so I'll heal for now. To Petey saying, I'm ready. And she just looked up at me one day, and she was an eater. She loved to eat. And one day she sat beside her bowl full of food, and she looked up at me and she said, I'm done. I'm done. Within about 24 hours or so, she passed on. With other animals, they may be suffering and they say, help me. All we can do is listen, trust, love, respect. Thank you, my friends, for being here with me today. Thank you for the animals that you love and care for. I love you all. Thank you for the love that you send us. Thank you for receiving the love that we send to you. From my spirit, from my heart to your heart and spirit. I love you. Do take care. Stay healthy. And I'll see you next week. If not before, who knows?